show.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
Well, Jenna, I've heard you say that you are both nerds for our national parks. So I'm wondering, where did this all come from?
I think it came to me from my mom. And I know we were both in...
I was the nerd.
She was the nerd, and I like the national parks. No, it came from my mom and from her mother. My fondest childhood memories of being a little girl, a 5-year-old, was laying on the ground in Midland, Texas, on a blanket and staring at the stars, and my grandmother and my mom teaching Barbara and me where all the constellations are. And I think, you know, those are where we get it from my grandmother, my namesake, Jenna. But of course, we love the national parks as well.
And Mrs. Bush, it's interesting. I think it's tough to picture a first lady sleeping in a tent, but you've always had just such an easy grace about you. But I've heard that you actually have shared a tent with Jenna on one of these expeditions. Tell us about that.
That's right. I've hiked in the national parks for 30 years with friends that I grew up with in Midland, Texas. And one year, during the time we lived at the White House, we invited our daughters to join us on the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon and then hiking out the South Rim. So Jenna and I shared a tent.
Although I have to say, they never invited us back again. That one year might have been enough.
Mrs. Bush, is it true that you gave up wearing heels after you left the White House?
That's right. I gave up heels totally. I'm in flats right at this very moment.
And she gets really mad at Barbara and me when we go to...
They're always wearing the very kind of, kind of staggering along in high heels, and they're about 7 inches taller than I am.
And when we take pictures, we're towering over her.
Not so good when you're climbing the rim at Yosemite, I imagine. Jenna.
Yeah, that's right.
You're a parent now. You've got 2 beautiful girls. I think there's a tendency for kids these days, you know, they're glued to the phones and the iPads. They're always looking down instead of up. So how do you handle that as a parent?
No, that's so funny. That's one of the reasons why we wrote the book, is that I see, even with my 3-year-old, that she's desperately reaching for what we have, our iPads and iPhones. And so the main thing we did in my house is we try not to be on it. So when we get home from work at 5 or 6 or 7 and we have those few hours with our girls, we put our phones away. And in the morning, if I'm home and we have that hour with her, we don't get on our phones, because that's also part of the problem. I mean, we're mirroring for our kids these behaviors.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually married in Kennebunkport, Maine a couple of years ago, and I can't tell you how many times my mother-in-law, Donna, has said that she's seen Mrs. Bush walking on the beaches really early in the morning. So why are the outdoors so important to the Bush family?
She does walk on the beach every day. In fact, I use that in speeches I give, because I know she's walking on this beach every day because she knows she doesn't have that many more years to walk on the beach. She'll be 91 this summer. She walks on the beach with a walker now. But I think she just is such a great example for all of us. The whole idea of all we know we have is now.
And you know how beautiful Kennebunkport is by being married there.
Right.
So she just wants to be out and be by the ocean, which is my grandparents both their favorite place in the world. And growing up, we used to camp out in our front yard there with our dad. So that's part of the book, too. You don't have to fly across the country. You can have these kind of adventures with your families in your own backyard.
Well, Jenna, I wasn't going to bring this up. I know you're easy to tears. Your grandfather, President George H.W. Bush, actually wrote me a note before my wedding. We got married at St. Anne's, and he said the key to a long marriage...
He did?
Yeah, he did. I have it framed in my house. He said the key to a long marriage is putting each other first, and I thought that just spoke to you guys so well.
Oh, that's so sweet.
You are trying to make me cry, aren't you?
We're going to christen Poppy this summer at St. Anne's.
Yeah, my little daughter will be christened there. So.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm so glad
we'll say hi to your old stomping ground.
Thanks so much. We'll see you up there Memorial Day weekend, I hope. Well, ladies, such an absolute pleasure talking to you this morning. Your book is all about the national parks. It's called Our Great Big Backyard, and it's in stores right now. Jenna and Mrs. Bush, again, such a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much.
Alexis.